The first thing I understood wasn't that my wife was cheating on me. It was that she no longer cared whether I lived in the same reality as her. I remember standing in the kitchen at 6:12 a.m., coffee burning on the tongue, watching her tie her hair in the mirror by the door. She didn't look at me. Not even once. 18 years together, 2 kids, a house that still smelled like last night's dinner, and I might as well have been a piece of furniture she planned to replace later. Her name was Megan. Mine is Daniel. I'm 42 years old, work in logistics, pay my taxes on time, don't drink much, don't hit walls, don't scream. I was never the dramatic type. I believed stability was a form of love. I believed silence meant peace. That morning, Megan smiled at her phone while pulling on her coat. Not a polite smile. Not the kind you give coworkers or friends. It was private, intimate, the kind of smile you don't explain. Big day? I asked. She flinched. Just a little. Enough. Yeah, she said. Meetings. She didn't say goodbye. The door closed softly behind her, and something in my chest stayed open. I didn't check her phone. I didn't follow her. I didn't call her office. I sat at the table and stared at the place where her coffee mug should have been. She'd forgotten it. She never forgot it. I picked it up, still warm, and for the first time in my life I felt like a guest in my own house. People think betrayal announces itself. Lipstick on collars. Late nights. Guilt-driven apologies. That's not how it happens when it's real. Real betrayal shows up as absence, as indifference, as someone no longer bothering to lie well. Over the next few weeks, Megan drifted further away without actually leaving. She laughed more, but not with me. She slept beside me, but her body felt rented, temporary. She stopped asking how my day was. Stopped complaining. Stopped caring if I noticed. That scared me more than anger ever could. One night, after the kids were asleep, I asked her if everything was okay. She didn't even pretend to think about it. Of course, she said. Why? I wanted to tell her I felt erased. That the house felt hollow when she walked through it. That something was wrong in a way I couldn't name. Instead, I nodded. I had already learned that asking questions made her impatient. A week later, she changed the password on her phone. She didn't tell me. She didn't have to. I noticed when she angled the screen away from me, fingers moving faster, smile appearing and disappearing like a reflex. I noticed when she started showering the moment she got home, as if washing something off. I said nothing. Silence became my weapon before I even knew I was at war. I began to watch her the way you watch Whether You Can't Stop. I memorized her patterns, her new clothes, her sudden interest in the gym, the way she checked the mirror before leaving the house, not for me, but for someone else. The realization didn't break me. It hardened something. I understood then that this wasn't about sex. It was about choice. She had chosen another life while still feeding on the stability of this one. She wanted both. She wanted me quiet, dependable, blind. I wasn't blind. I was patient. One evening, she came home late. No explanation. No apology. She walked past me like I was already gone. Kids are asleep, I said. I know, she replied, annoyed. That tone, like I'd inconvenienced her by existing. That night, lying beside her, listening to her breathe, I made a decision I would never take back. I wasn't going to confront her. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to compete. I was going to let her destroy herself. The next morning, I opened a new bank account in my name only. I didn't hide it. I just didn't announce it. I started copying documents. Mortgage, insurance, investment accounts. I called a lawyer during my lunch break and spoke calmly, like I was ordering takeout. At home, I stayed the same, or close enough. I cooked dinner, helped with homework, asked neutral questions. I became predictable again. That's when Megan started to get nervous. She watched me now, studied my face, tried to read what I wasn't saying. One night, she asked if I was seeing someone. The irony almost made me laugh. No, I said. Why? She shrugged, but her eyes stayed on me too long. Suspicion is ugly when it turns inward. I could feel the shift. Her confidence cracking. Her secret no longer feeling safe. The man she was risking everything for suddenly seemed less solid when I stopped anchoring her world. The night she finally slipped was quiet. Too quiet. She left her phone on the kitchen counter when she went upstairs. I didn't touch it. I didn't need to. It lit up on its own. A message preview. A name I didn't recognize. Can't stop thinking about last night. I stood there for a long time, staring at those words, feeling nothing and everything at once. Upstairs, Megan laughed softly at something on TV. unaware that the ground under her feet had already started to collapse. I locked the screen without reading further and placed the phone back exactly where it had been. Then I went upstairs, kissed her forehead, and told her I loved her. She smiled, relieved. That was the moment I knew she was already finished. I didn't sleep that night. I lay next to her, counting breaths, thinking about how easy it would be to wake her up and say her name out loud the way I used to. Instead, I let the silence do the work. Silence makes people confess things to themselves they'll never say to you. The next morning I woke up before my alarm and watched her get dressed. She moved fast, efficient, like someone already late for another life. When she bent to pick up her shoes, her phone buzzed again. She froze. Just for a second. Long enough. You okay? I asked. Yeah, she said too quickly. Just tired. She leaned in and kissed my cheek. It felt like a transaction. I nodded, grabbed my keys, and left before the kids woke up. Sitting in my car, I stared at the steering wheel and waited for the shaking to stop. It didn't. I drove anyway. At work, I made mistakes I never make. Numbers blurred. Emails went unread. Every few minutes, I saw that message again in my head. Can't stop thinking about last night. It wasn't the words. It was the certainty behind them. Whoever sent that didn't sound nervous. He sounded comfortable. That afternoon, I did something I hadn't planned on doing yet. I parked a block away from our house and walked back. Megan's car wasn't there. The house looked calm, innocent. Curtains drawn. Grass trimmed. A place where nothing bad should happen. I went inside and sat in the living room, listening to the quiet. This was the space I'd paid for, fixed, protected. And she had invited someone else into it, even if not physically. That mattered more than she would ever understand. When she came home, she was glowing. There's no other word for it. Her eyes were bright, her movements lighter, like she'd just stepped out of warm water. Good day? I asked. She hesitated. Yeah. Long. She went straight to the shower. I stood in the kitchen and felt something shift from hurt to resolve. Hurt makes you sloppy. Resolve makes you careful. I took out my phone and checked the new account. Everything was clean, quiet, invisible. Over the next few days, I changed small things. I started going for walks at night. I stopped telling her where I was going. I took phone calls in the garage. Not fake calls. Real ones. Lawyer. Financial advisor. School counselor, just to understand my options. Megan noticed. She tried to hide it, but she started asking questions again. The kind she used to ask before she checked out of our marriage. You've been distant, she said one night, standing in the doorway. So have you, I replied. She didn't like that. She didn't argue, either. She just stood there, eyes narrowing, recalculating. The man in her phone started calling more often. I could hear it in the way she held the device, the way she stepped outside to answer. Once, she forgot to close the door all the way. I heard her laugh, a sound I hadn't earned in months. That laugh did something permanent to me. I started imagining the future she thought she was building. How temporary it was. How fragile. Men like that don't want responsibility. They want escape. They want someone else's life without the weight of it. One night, after the kids were asleep, she asked me directly if I was unhappy. I looked at her and realized she genuinely needed me to say no. Not because she loved me, but because her story required it. I don't know, I said. She swallowed. That's not fair. Neither was what she was doing. But fairness was no longer part of the equation. Later, when she was asleep, I opened my laptop and wrote a list of dates. Late nights. Missed dinners. Excuses. I didn't need proof. I needed timing. A week later, I got it. She told me she was going out with coworkers. She dressed too carefully for coworkers. When she left, I waited 10 minutes, then followed. I didn't go all the way. I didn't need to see them together. I saw enough when she parked at a hotel on the edge of town and walked inside without looking back. I sat in my car and felt something inside me finally go quiet. That night, I didn't confront her. I didn't ask questions. I made dinner, put the kids to bed, and waited. When she came home, smelling like soap and something that wasn't mine, I smiled and told her everything was fine. She believed me. That was her last mistake. The lies settled into our house like dust. Invisible at first, then everywhere. Megan started acting careful. Not guilty, careful. There's a difference. Guilt makes people sloppy. Careful people think they're smarter than you. She asked where I was going, who I talked to, why I was smiling at nothing. I gave her just enough to keep her balanced and nothing she could grab. I let her think I was drifting. I began coming home later, Not late enough to cause suspicion, just late enough to create space. I stopped correcting her when she misremembered things. I stopped filling silences. Silence forces imagination to work overtime, and imagination is cruel when fed by fear. One evening, she cooked dinner for the first time in months. Nothing fancy, just chicken and rice. She kept looking at me like she was waiting for a verdict. "This felt nice," she said, too deliberately. "Like old times." I chewed slowly and nodded. "Yeah, it did." Her shoulders relaxed. She needed reassurance like oxygen. I gave her a shallow breath and watched her take it. Later that night, she reached for me in bed. Not urgently, not passionately, strategically. I let it happen. I stared at the ceiling while she tried to reconnect to something she'd already abandoned. When it was over, she turned away quickly, like she was afraid to look at me too long. I knew then she was scared. The man in her phone started leaving marks. Not physical ones, emotional ones. She became short-tempered with the kids. Distracted. She forgot things she used to remember automatically. Permission slips. Appointments. Birthdays. I picked up the slack quietly. Packed lunches. Made calls. Showed up. Not because I was trying to win her back, but because someone had to be the adult. That someone wasn't her anymore. A few days later, she came home shaking. Said work was stressful. Said her boss was being difficult. I nodded, held her, said nothing. Her heart was racing. Not from work. That night, while she slept, I finally checked her phone. It wasn't hard. She'd gotten careless. The password was his birthday. The messages weren't romantic. That surprised me. They were practical. Plans. Complaints. Expectations. He wanted more time. More certainty. More answers about me. She told him I was distant. Confused. Possibly depressed. She made me sound weak. That hurt more than the affair. I didn't read everything. I didn't need to. I saw enough to understand the shape of their future. He was already tired of waiting. She was already promising things she couldn't deliver. In the morning, I made pancakes. The kids laughed. Megan watched me like she was studying a stranger. "You're being really nice," she said. "I always am," I replied. She didn't believe me. The next move wasn't legal or financial. It was personal. I ran into her friend Sarah at the grocery store. Someone she trusted. Someone who'd known us since college. I didn't accuse. I didn't hint. I just talked about how strange Megan had been lately. How distant. How worried I was. Sarah frowned. "That doesn't sound like her." "I know," I said. "That's what scares me. Seeds don't need force. They need placement." That weekend, Megan suggested a family outing. Zoo. Ice cream. Photos. Proof of normalcy. I played my part. Smiled when expected. Held her hand when cameras came out. Let her post the pictures later. He saw them. I knew he would. That night, she cried in the shower. I heard it through the door. Not loud. Controlled. The kind of crying that comes from pressure, not regret. When she came out, her eyes were red. "I don't know what I'm doing," she said. I looked at her and felt nothing soften. "Then stop," I said. She nodded. Too fast. Like someone agreeing to something they didn't intend to keep. The next day, she told him she needed space. He didn't take it well. By the end of the week, she was trapped between a man who wanted a future and a husband who had become unreadable. She didn't know yet that unreadable meant unreachable. The balance she'd built her double life on was already cracking, and I was done pretending I didn't hear it. By the fourth week, the house felt like a holding cell. Megan moved through it quietly now, like someone afraid of setting off alarms. She checked her phone less in front of me, more in the bathroom, sometimes in the car before she even turned the engine off. I didn't need to see the messages anymore. I could read her face. Tension had replaced excitement. The affair had crossed the line from escape to obligation. That's when it starts to rot. One night she sat across from me at the kitchen table and asked, "Do you still trust me?" The question landed wrong. Too late. Too rehearsed. "I don't think about it," I said. Her mouth tightened. "That's not an answer. It's the only honest one I have." She stared at the table, fingers tracing a crack in the wood we'd never bothered to fix. I'd always meant to. It didn't seem important anymore. A few days later, she didn't come home at all. No text. No call. Just absence. I put the kids to bed alone. Read the stories. Answered the questions. Told them Mom was working late. I believed that was still technically true. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. "I'm staying at Sarah's. We talked. I need time." Time. The word people use when they want permission to keep lying without consequences. I replied with one word. "Okay." She came back the next afternoon with a bag and red eyes. Not from crying. From being awake too long, thinking too hard. She sat on the couch like a guest and waited for me to speak. I didn't. That silence crushed her more than yelling ever could. She started explaining without being asked. Stress, confusion, feeling lost, feeling invisible. Every cliché polished and ready. I listened. I always listened. When she finished, she looked at me like she'd handed me something fragile. Do you want me to leave? She asked. The house held its breath. No, I said. I want you to stay. Relief washed over her face so fast it almost made me sick. She misunderstood that answer completely. She thought staying meant safety. What it meant was proximity. From that day on, I watched her unravel up close. The other man started pushing harder. I could see it in her mood swings, the sudden anger, the late-night pacing. She argued with him now. Quietly. Desperately. She was losing control of both worlds. I got a call from my lawyer on a Thursday. Everything was ready. Papers clean. Timeline solid. Custody strategy prepared. I thanked him and hung up, then sat in my car for a long time, gripping the steering wheel until my hands hurt. That night, Megan tried to start a fight. You don't talk anymore, she said. You don't look at me. You're acting like I don't exist. I met her eyes. Now you know how it feels. She slapped the counter. Not me. Never me. That's not fair. Fair had left this marriage a long time ago. She stormed out of the room and slammed the bedroom door. I slept on the couch. Not as a statement. As a decision. The next morning, she woke me up by standing over me. I can't live like this, she said. You are, I replied. She went to work furious. He called her all day. I knew because she didn't come home for lunch like she sometimes did. I also knew because Sarah texted me. Is everything okay with Megan? She's been saying some strange things. I told her I was worried. I told her I didn't recognize my wife anymore. I told her I was scared for the kids. That night, Megan came home pale. Did you talk to Sarah? She asked. Yes. Her voice shook. What did you say? The truth, I said. That was when panic finally broke through her composure. She realized the walls were closing in from directions she couldn't control. Friends. Appearances. Stories. She slept curled on the far edge of the bed, facing away from me, clutching her phone like a lifeline. Around 2 a.m., it buzzed. She didn't move. I reached over, took it gently from her hand, and stood up. This time, I didn't put it back. I stood in the dark hallway with her phone in my hand and felt how light it was. All that damage, all that chaos, compressed into a thin piece of glass. I didn't rush. I didn't panic. I went into the kitchen, sat down, and turned on the light like it was any other night. The screen lit up immediately. No password. She'd stopped pretending with him. That told me everything I needed to know about how deep she was. His name was Ryan. Not a nickname. Not initials. First and last name. Like he belonged somewhere permanent in her life. The last message was already open. Did you tell him yet? I scrolled slowly. There were weeks of messages. Not romance. Negotiations. Pressure. Complaints about me, about the kids, about timing. He wanted her free. She wanted him patient. He was getting tired of waiting. She was starting to resent me for not disappearing on schedule. She had told him she loved him. She had told him I was emotionally unstable. She had told him she was staying for the kids, like they were an inconvenience instead of the only people in this house who hadn't lied to me. I didn't feel rage. Rage is loud. This was colder. Precise. At 2:19 a.m., I sent one message from her phone. He knows. I turned the phone off and placed it on the counter. Upstairs, Megan slept through it. The next morning was quiet. Too quiet. She moved around the house carefully, watching me from the corners of her eyes. I made breakfast. Packed lunches. Acted normal. She waited for something to explode. It didn't. At 9:43 a.m., her phone rang. She stared at it like it might bite her. Are you going to answer? I asked. She swallowed and shook her head. Not right now. Okay, I said. 10 minutes later, it rang again. She took it outside. When she came back in, her face was gray. What did he say? I asked. She stared at me. You read my messages. Yes. She opened her mouth, then closed it. The words didn't matter anymore. He's angry, she said. He thinks you're manipulating me. I almost smiled. The rest of the day, she unraveled. Missed calls. Texts she deleted too fast. Pacing. Crying in the bathroom. She tried to talk to me 3 times. Each time I told her we'd talk later. Later is torture when you don't control the ending. That evening, Ryan showed up at our house. I was the one who answered the door. He was taller than me, younger, trying too hard to look calm. He smelled like confidence that hadn't been tested yet. When he saw me, something in his face shifted. He had expected a fight. Maybe tears. Not this. Is Megan home? He asked. She's upstairs, I said. But we can talk. His jaw tightened. This is between me and her. No, I said quietly. It isn't. He glanced past me into the house. The kids' shoes by the door. The framed photos. Reality setting in. She told me you knew, he said. I do. She said you're okay with it. I nodded. She says a lot of things. Megan appeared at the top of the stairs then, frozen. She looked at him, then at me, like she was watching two timelines collide. Ryan, please, she said. He ignored her. You're controlling her, he told me. She's scared of you. I laughed. Once. Sharp. She's scared, I said. Because she built her future on lies and thought no one would check the foundation. He stepped closer. You don't get to decide her life. I stepped aside and opened the door wider. You can have her. The words landed hard. Megan gasped. Daniel, you can leave, I said to her, calm and clear. Right now? Go with him. Ryan turned to her, hope flashing across his face. She didn't move. That was the moment he understood. He wasn't the escape. He was the risk. And she had already lost the safety net. His expression darkened. You told me you were ready. She started crying. I thought I was. He shook his head slowly, disgust replacing desire. You lied to everyone. He left without another word. The door closed behind him, and the house went still. Megan slid down the wall and sobbed. Loud now. Broken. I watched her from across the room, feeling the last illusion die. Tomorrow, I would end this. But tonight, I wanted her to understand exactly what she had done. She cried until her voice broke, until the sound stopped meaning anything and turned into noise. I didn't move. I didn't offer a hand or a word. Comfort would have rewritten the moment, and I needed it to stay exactly as it was. When she finally looked up at me, her face was swollen and unfamiliar, like someone I used to know a long time ago. You set me up, she said hoarsely. No, I replied. I stopped protecting you from consequences. She tried to stand, failed, then pushed herself up again using the wall. Her hands were shaking, not from fear of me, from the collapse of the story she'd been telling herself. I don't know what to do, she said. For the first time in weeks, she sounded honest. You're going to sit down, I said. And you're going to listen. She sat. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't pace. I didn't threaten. I told her everything I knew, calmly, in order. The hotel, the messages, the lies about me, the way she'd already started rewriting our marriage to justify what she wanted. Her eyes widened with each detail. She hadn't realized how much I'd seen, how long I'd been watching. You went through my phone, she whispered. Yes. That's a violation. I nodded. So is what you did. She opened her mouth to argue, then stopped. There was nothing left to defend. I told her about the lawyer, the accounts, the documents, the timeline. Not to scare her, but to ground her. Fear blurs. Clarity cuts. I'm not here to punish you, I said. I'm here to finish this. Her breathing quickened. Finish what? This marriage, as it exists now. She started crying again, quieter this time. Controlled. Strategic. I made a mistake, she said. I was lonely. You were distant. I leaned forward. You didn't come to me. You didn't leave me. You replaced me. Don't confuse that with loneliness. She flinched like I'd struck her. What about the kids? She asked. They're why I waited. That shut her up. I told her how things were going to go. Not in bullet points. Not like a contract. Like a reality she had already stepped into without realizing it. We would live in the same house for now. Separate rooms. Civil, stable. No more secrets. No more disappearing. Any contact with him would be disclosed. Any violation would end the conversation permanently. She stared at me. You're controlling me. No, I said. I'm giving you a choice you didn't give me. What choice? To behave like a parent and a partner during the end of this, or to turn it into a war you won't win. She looked away. She knew. That night, she slept in the guest room. I slept in our bed for the first time in weeks and felt nothing but relief. The uncertainty was gone. Pain I could handle. Ambiguity I could not. The next day, I took off work and met with the lawyer in person. We went over everything again. He asked if I was ready to file. Yes, I said. When I got home, Megan was sitting at the table with a notebook open. She'd written pages. Apologies. Explanations. Promises. She slid it toward me like an offering. I didn't read it. You can keep that, I said. I already know how you feel. It just doesn't change anything. That evening, she asked if we could tell the kids together. Not yet, I said. They deserve stability first, not your guilt. That night, her phone buzzed once. She stared at it for a long time, then turned it off and pushed it into a drawer. I watched her do it. Not with hope, with documentation. 3 days later, Ryan sent an email to my work address. He apologized. Not for the affair. For being dragged into something messy. He said he'd been misled. He said he was stepping away. I forwarded it to my lawyer and deleted it. Megan never asked if he'd reached out. A week passed. Then another. The house settled into a strange calm. Like the quiet after a storm, when you're not sure what's still standing. One night, as we were locking up, she stopped in the hallway. Do you hate me? She asked. I thought about it. No, I said. I don't trust you. She nodded slowly, like that answer was worse. The papers were ready by Friday. I waited until Sunday to tell her. We were sitting in the living room. The kids were at a friend's house. Sunlight came through the windows like nothing had changed. I handed her the envelope. She didn't open it. She didn't need to. Her hands trembled. Is this it? This is the part where I stop carrying you, I said. She closed her eyes. And somewhere deep inside me, something that had been tight for months finally let go. But the hardest part wasn't over yet. She signed the papers 2 days later without a lawyer present. That wasn't strength. It was surrender. We sat across from each other at the dining table while the kids were at school. She held the pen like it might burn her. Every signature cost her something she didn't know how to name. I watched her hands shake and felt no urge to stop it. This was her weight to carry now. When she finished, she slid the folder back to me and whispered, I never thought you'd actually do it. That was the most honest thing she'd said in months. I didn't think you'd actually force me to, I replied. She flinched. Not because it was cruel, but because it was true. The legal process moved faster than she expected. When you prepare quietly, there's no drama left for the court. Temporary custody was established within weeks. The kids stayed with me during the school year. She got weekends. Supervised at first, not because she was dangerous, but because stability matters when trust collapses. That part broke her more than losing me. She told people I was cold, calculated, that I'd planned everything while she was struggling. She needed a villain. I didn't correct her. People who listen carefully don't need clarification. What she didn't know was how much work it took not to fall apart when the house went quiet after the kids fell asleep. How many nights I sat on the edge of the bed staring at nothing, replaying conversations that could never be fixed. Control doesn't erase pain. It just gives it a shape you can live with. The kids asked questions. I answered them carefully. No blame. No lies. I told them their mother loved them, and that sometimes adults make choices that change things. I didn't tell them she'd chosen someone else over us. That truth wasn't mine to weaponize. Megan didn't handle the distance well. She started showing up early on her days. Lingering. Asking unnecessary questions. Commenting on small changes in the house. New routines. New rules. She was trying to find a crack she could slip back through. There wasn't one. One afternoon, she stayed after dropping the kids off and stood in the doorway. You're doing fine, she said. Better than I expected. I didn't look up from the counter. I had to. She hesitated. I think about us. About what we had. So do I said. That's why I won't rebuild it. Her face tightened. People say you never forgave me. I did, I said. That's how I was able to leave. That was when she finally understood that forgiveness doesn't mean access. A month later, she lost her job. Not fired. Phased out. Restructured. The kind of corporate exit that looks clean on paper and destroys you quietly. She called me that night, voice shaking, asking what she was supposed to do. I listened. Then I told her to call her sister. I thought we were still a team, she said. We're co-parents, I replied. Don't confuse that. She hung up on me. The rumors started after that. About her. About him. About how it all really went down. Someone at her old office had known Ryan. Someone had talked. The narrative shifted. Sympathy evaporated. People don't like being lied to when the truth finally shows up. She came by one evening unannounced, eyes wild, blaming me for turning everyone against her. I didn't say anything, I told her. You just ran out of places to hide. She stood there, breathing hard, and for a moment I thought she might scream. Instead, she laughed. A short, broken sound. "You really destroyed me," she said. I looked at her carefully. "No. I stopped protecting the version of you that did this." She left without another word. That night, after the kids were asleep, I sat alone in the living room and felt something unfamiliar settle in. Not relief. Not victory. Balance. I wasn't whole again, but I wasn't bleeding anymore either. The next morning, I got an email from Ryan. He wanted to talk. That's when I realized the past wasn't done asking for its final payment. I didn't reply right away. Ryan's name sat in my inbox like a closed door I hadn't planned on opening again. I read the email once, then again. It wasn't long. No apologies this time. No explanations. Just a request to meet and a sentence that caught my attention. "There are things you should know. About her. About what she did after you found out." That sentence was deliberate. He wasn't asking for closure. He was offering leverage. I waited 2 days before responding. Long enough for him to wonder if I deleted it. Long enough for him to feel off balance. Then I sent one line. "Coffee. Tuesday. Noon. My place." If he was going to talk, it would be on my ground. He showed up early. I watched him from the window as he sat in his car, staring straight ahead, rehearsing. He looked different. Thinner. The confidence had burned off, leaving something sharp underneath. When I opened the door, he stood too fast. "Daniel," he said. "Ryan," I replied. "Come in." He stepped inside and paused, taking in the house. The quiet. The order. The absence of chaos. It didn't match the version of me Megan had sold him. We sat at the table. I poured coffee for both of us. He noticed. People always do. "I didn't come to fight," he said. "I didn't invite you to," I replied. He nodded. "Fair." He wrapped his hands around the mug, but didn't drink. "She lied to me. About a lot." "I know. She told me you were unstable. That you tracked her. That she was scared to leave." I leaned back. "And yet you still slept with her." His jaw tightened. "I believed her." "That's not a defense," I said. "That's a choice." He exhaled slowly. "You're right." There it was. The first crack. "I ended it because I didn't want a life built on someone else's wreckage," he said. But she didn't stop. That got my attention. She kept calling, texting, showing up. She said she'd lose everything if I didn't help her. "Help her how?" He hesitated. "By saying you were abusive." The word landed hard, even though I'd expected something like it. "She wanted a record," he continued. "Messages. Statements. Something she could use if the divorce turned ugly." I didn't interrupt. I didn't react. I let him keep going. "She asked me to lie," he said. "To say I'd seen you threaten her. To say she was afraid for her safety." "And did you?" "No." That answer mattered more than he knew. "She didn't take it well," he said. "She said you were manipulating everyone. That you'd ruin her if she didn't protect herself first." I nodded slowly. She always believed offense was the same thing as defense. He looked at me carefully. "You already knew, didn't you?" "I knew she'd try something," I said. I didn't know how far. Ryan finally took a sip of coffee. His hand was shaking. "I'm not proud of my part in any of this," he said. "But I won't lie for her. I won't be used again." "Why tell me now?" I asked. "Because she's still escalating," he said. "And because I don't want to be the next thing she blames." That was honest. Selfish, but honest. I stood up and walked to the counter, opened a drawer, and pulled out a folder. I placed it on the table between us. "What's this?" he asked. "Documentation," I said. "Messages. Dates. Witnesses. Financial records. A pattern." His eyes widened as he flipped through a few pages. "You were prepared." "I had to be." He closed the folder carefully. "She doesn't know you have this." "No," I said. "She thinks I'm done." He looked up at me. "You're not." "I am," I replied. "But she isn't." Ryan sat back, running a hand through his hair. "She told me she'd destroy you if she couldn't have you." I met his eyes. "She already tried." Silence stretched between us. Not hostile. Heavy. "What do you want from me?" he asked. I didn't answer right away. I thought about Megan's face when she realized she'd lost control. About the kids asleep upstairs, trusting me to keep their world steady. "Nothing," I said finally. "Unless you're asked to lie. Then you tell the truth." He nodded. "I will." When he left, the house felt different again. Not threatened. Alert. That evening, Megan called. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail, voice tight, controlled. She said she'd heard I met with Ryan. She said I was crossing a line. She said I was trying to ruin her life. I deleted the message without listening to the end. The next morning, my lawyer called. Megan's attorney reached out, he said. They're requesting a modification to custody. I closed my eyes. On what grounds? I asked. Allegations, he said. Nothing formal yet, but it's coming. I thanked him and hung up. I walked into the kids' room and watched them sleep for a moment longer than usual. Peaceful, unaware. Megan had one last move left, and this time, I wasn't going to let her miss. She filed 3 days later. Emergency motion. Full custody. Allegations of emotional abuse, manipulation, intimidation. Carefully worded. Vague enough to sound serious. Familiar enough to be believed by people who didn't know me. I wasn't surprised. I was ready. The first thing people don't understand about accusations like that is how fast they poison everything. School administrators get cautious. Friends go quiet. Even neutral people start watching you like you might do something wrong just to justify their discomfort. That was the point. My lawyer called me into his office the morning the paperwork hit his desk. He didn't look alarmed. That mattered. She doesn't have evidence, he said. She has a narrative. Will that be enough? I asked. Only if you panic, he replied. I didn't. I handed him everything. The folder Ryan had seen was only a fraction. Messages she'd sent to friends contradicting her claims. Emails where she admitted I'd never raised my voice. Calendar records. Financial consistency. Therapy notes from years earlier where she described me as stable and supportive. Patterns matter more than moments. The court scheduled a preliminary hearing. No kids present. No theatrics allowed. Megan arrived early, sitting stiff and composed, her attorney whispering reassurances. She didn't look at me. When the judge asked her to explain her concerns, she spoke softly. Carefully. She described fear without specifics. Control without examples. A man who made her feel unsafe by being emotionally distant. I listened without reacting. Every word she said dug her hole deeper. When it was my turn, I spoke plainly. No anger. No defense of my pride. I talked about routines. About homework. About consistency. About how children don't need perfect parents, just predictable ones. Then my lawyer introduced exhibits. Ryan's affidavit came first. Her head snapped up when his name was read. Color drained from her face as his statement was summarized. Her attempts to solicit false testimony. Her pressure. Her language. Her threats. She shook her head, whispering to her attorney. Then came Sarah. Not in person. In text messages. Weeks of concern Megan had shared, not about fear, but about losing control of the narrative. About how to protect herself by acting first. The judge's expression changed. Subtly. Permanently. By the end of the hearing, Megan was crying again. Real crying this time. Not strategic. The kind that comes when the ground gives way. The motion was denied. Custody remained unchanged. The judge issued a warning. About false allegations. About escalation. About consequences. Megan didn't look at me as we left the courtroom. She waited until the parking lot. You planned this, she said, voice shaking with rage and humiliation. I responded to it. I said, you ruined me, she whispered. I looked at her for a long moment. The woman I'd married. The mother of my children. Someone I once trusted completely. No, I said quietly. You tried to ruin me. I just didn't let you. She laughed then. A sharp, broken sound. You think you won? I didn't answer. Because winning had never been the goal. Ending it was. The fallout was swift. Her attorney withdrew within a month. Too many contradictions. Too many risks. Word travels fast in small professional circles. No one wants to attach their name to a losing lie. She lost more than the case. She lost credibility. Friends distanced themselves. School staff stopped being polite and started being firm. The narrative she'd built collapsed under its own weight. One night, she showed up at the house again. No warning. No makeup. No plan. I have nothing left, she said. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me so the kids wouldn't hear. You still have them, I said. If you stop making them collateral. She sank onto the steps. I don't know who I am anymore. That's not my problem, I said. But it is your responsibility. She looked up at me, eyes empty. Do you feel good about this? I thought about it. No, I said. I feel finished. She stayed there a long time after I went back inside. Weeks passed. Then months. Life stabilized. Not happy. Stable. The kids adjusted. I adjusted. The constant tension left my body slowly, like a bruise fading. One afternoon, my lawyer called again. "It's over," he said. "She's accepted the final custody arrangement. No appeals." I thanked him and hung up. That night, after the kids were asleep, I sat alone in the living room, lights off, listening to the house breathe. Justice doesn't feel like triumph. It feels like quiet. But quiet has a way of revealing what's still unresolved. And I wasn't done with myself yet. The silence in the house had grown heavy, almost tactile. I moved through the rooms like a ghost, checking locks, adjusting lights, making sure the kids' homework was done, that dinner was in the oven, that life ticked along like a metronome. Stability. That was my weapon now, steadiness. Nothing flashy, nothing dramatic, just survival made visible. Megan didn't come around anymore, at least not uninvited. Court had stripped her of leverage, and she had nothing left to bargain with. But the way she lingered in my mind, in the empty spaces of the house, reminded me that wounds don't heal because you win. They heal because you endure. And endure I would. One evening, I found a note slipped under the kitchen door. Just a single sheet of paper, edges trembling like her hands probably had when she wrote it. "I see you've survived. I'm done. But you should know, I won't forget." I read it 3 times. Then I burned it. It was the only way to feel anything close to closure, to see her fear and frustration turn to ash in my hands while I stayed untouched. It wasn't about cruelty. It wasn't about triumph. It was about reclaiming the space she had tried to poison with lies and resentment. The kids noticed the difference in me first. Less tension, less restless pacing. I could sit with them, laugh even, without calculating every word, every expression. It was simple, but revolutionary. Peace built slowly, brick by brick, after the storm had passed. I went back to work, not because I needed the distraction, but because routine reminded me who I was when stripped of drama, of deceit. My office smelled the same, felt the same, but I was different, sharper, wiser, hardened, capable of recognizing manipulation before it could even take root. Months turned into a year. Megan's attempts at contact dwindled to nothing. Social media posts I didn't see, messages I ignored. The narrative she tried to force into the world dissolved into whispers. Friends who had been quiet now leaned in, reassured by the truth's quiet gravity. Late one night, I walked past the children's rooms, watching them sleep. Their chests rose and fell in perfect rhythm, unburdened by the tension their mother had tried to force into our lives. I felt a strange weight lift, almost like a debt paid not with money or revenge, but with endurance, patience, and truth. I realized then that life doesn't reward fury. It rewards consistency. It rewards integrity. And above all, it rewards survival. Megan had tried to destroy me piece by piece, but she underestimated one thing. A man who refuses to break becomes unstoppable in his own quiet way. The last time I thought of her, it wasn't with anger or triumph. It was with recognition, the recognition that some battles aren't about winning. They're about proving you can stand when everything else falls away, that you can look at the ruins of betrayal, the ashes of manipulation, and still choose to breathe. And in that breathing, in that quiet, I finally understood what justice really felt like. Not loud, not flashy, cold, calculated, complete. I closed my eyes, knowing the storm had passed, the kids were safe, and I, finally, was free. The house was quiet, but I wasn't. Not anymore. I was awake, and nothing could touch that.